You can start.
Good. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody made it in right on time. Welcome to the webinar of Modulos and Completion. Today, we want to talk a bit about how can we turn AI governance into a competitive advantage. So some of you might already know us. So maybe Kevin, you can give a short introduction to yourself.
It's great to see you all today at our webinar. My name is Kevin Szyminski. I'm the co-founder of Modulos. I used to be an astrophysicist, but I've been obsessed with AI and AI governance for many, many years now, and have been building and developing our AI governance platform here at Modulos. It's great to be here.
Likewise. And my name is Tillmann. I'm one of the founders of Completion. So that's how you pronounce that lovely German play with compliance and accomplices. We run a professional services company based in Berlin and support organizations throughout, right now, the DACH region when it comes to setting up their AI governance. And a while ago, we decided to go with the best-in-class software in that field. So that's why Modulos and Completion are here today. So I hope you will stay the full 45 minutes because we will learn quite a lot today. So what are we going to take away? One topic definitely when we talk about AI governance, and that's the main theme of today's webinar, is let's talk about risk. And risk not necessarily in the old, risk matrices of red, green, and yellow, but really how can we quantify AI risk across the life cycle down to a dollar value even. Secondly, how do we build proper governance based on those risks? And third, how can we measure those initiatives to provide a platform, a system, a structure that can build accountability for all your AI initiatives? So, many of you might have seen the blob on LinkedIn or elsewhere about why projects in the AI field are failing. And for us, it's, maybe two main things we see in reality, right? All the project initiatives that have been enthusiastically started years ago, they are typically facing staggering delays. And on the other end, when we look deeper into those projects and initiatives, we see that innovation and the pure technical development is hindered and slowed down by, even more coordination needs, alignments that have to be done, and basically time and money is not spent on innovation. What are the reasons for this? Definitely one element of governance: unclear responsibilities, lack of standards, lack of documentation, late legal reviews. When you use models, the moment you start using, an external model, it drifts over time. You detect it late by your old procedures. And for us, the question really was, how can we build something together that provides a system that increases productivity, increases quality, and helps to innovate? So I mentioned in the beginning, we want to quantify the risks associated with using AI. And maybe Kevin and I had a similar panel talk a while ago in Berlin at a conference, and we shared a lot of examples, and Kevin has a huge pool of them. So, but what we tried to manage here was to show that the various entry scenarios potentially for actual cost from the real world. One, is regulatory risk. And now, I mean, last week there were millions of euros fined by courts in France when it came to GDPR. But of course, the AI Act is also, on the way to provide regulatory risk if you fail to comply to those. You have operational risk, and basically you can look into the internet every day and see examples like this of vibe-coded platforms, of platforms that are not properly set up, which can, result into a complete operational shutdown. And of course, you have the element of reputational risk, where once, money is collected, VC money is collected, elements are promised, ultimately, you might be on the media front page with what you did there. And two pools of resources that I really like. One, a more academic one, the MIT AI Risk Registry, which was, published a while ago. It's regularly updated. It helps you understand your risk exposure that you potentially have, because it lists various, over, I think it's now even 2,000 risks that are categorized. And on the other end, one thing that I really like is, that's why, Modulos is also here, is I think Kevin on his personal cloud somewhere has a huge registry of AI risks and AI failures. And when we sat together a while ago, he was showing me the first version of an AI risk assessment and quantifier. And now I think it's live, and I think we can even see a demo today, right, Kevin?
We're going to see how we calculate risk all the way down to the level of code, because ultimately that's what's going to be required.
So shall we go into a demo?
Yeah, let me just briefly take over sharing here.
Yes, please.
And I will show folks how that works. So here I am on the Modulos platform. And very briefly, this is not an end-to-end demo. I just show you a little bit how we treat risk here. This is your organizational risk dashboard. This shows you how much risk you're willing to take, how much risk you actually have, where it comes from, what categories, what projects. And so this lets you, if you're an IT leader, this allows you to communicate with your management, with your board about squaring the demand of bringing in more AI systems, taking more risks with AI, and then mitigating those risks. So that the risk-adjusted ROI on AI initiatives is really there. And the whole thing, of course, can be customized by building a risk taxonomy, threat vector taxonomy that's fitted to your project and lets you figure out exactly how your risks work, how they compare across projects. And just very briefly, I'll show you what that looks like at the talent, at the project level. I created a vibe-coded app called Talent Lens AI, which compares CVs to job descriptions. And you can see it's not a very good application. This is very quickly built. And the first thing you notice about it, this is actually a high-risk application under the AI Act. So even though it was built in under an hour, this is actually something that if you just set it up because you want an internal tool to help you, could get you in trouble because it is a high-risk application under the AI Act. If I go to the dashboard here, you can see I've done very little compliance work. I've assessed some of the risks, and the risk exposure, especially from ethical and reputational and governance risks, is substantial, even if I just screen a few CVs. And that builds up over time before we even start mapping everything to the AI Act or GDPR or other frameworks. I can go and track those risks. We have different methods available here that you can use. But more importantly, we, of course, use AI ourselves to help you estimate those risks. And so what Tillman saw as a very early example of that is now fully live on our platform. Here I ask our AI assistant to quantify the risk of direct prompt injections, one of the risks in the taxonomy. And I've connected the Git repo where the code lives, and I've connected the observability tool that I'm using for this project. And it's going through what the risk of running this application really is. And it calculates it in euros and cents and gives you an answer. And here I said, it's maybe not, it's 10,000 reservation, but it's more like 100,000, and it adjusts the estimates. And what's very important about how we treat agents, not just in the question of risk assessment, is we always are very clear about what the key assumptions in an estimate are. What did the agent find in your code and your documentation, and what didn't it find? And it's telling you what would change the numbers. So how would you change this estimate? How would you mitigate this risk? And what controls actually you have available to help you mitigate those risks? And so here's even an example, illustrative impact. If the listed controls are implemented well, then the frequency goes down, the loss per event maybe goes down, and so the expected loss goes down. This is how, through proactive quantitative risk management, you bring your AI systems into alignment with regulations, you minimize the business risk, and therefore you maximize the ROI from using AI. And with that, back to Tillman.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. One thing we did in our professional service work over the last couple of weeks and months was we created a repository for all the various, tools of SaaS you can purchase online for your use cases, and started creating our repository of tools, and let's say started an initial assessment of all those tools based on the industry or the vertical you're in and the geography. So how do those things fit together? For us, it's not an or question, it's an and question, right? The various organizations we talk to, that's one of their starting points, is they want to procure, or mainly they already procured a solution in the last year or in the last years, and now face the question of what is the risk potentially associated with using that tool. And specifically for SMEs, this is a good starting point to say, where are we with our usage of, in this example, Notion AI for an SME in Germany? And the moment you see you have a certain risk exposure and how to manage and mitigate this would be a transfer point to use a full solution like Modulos. So, I mean, this slide is one that I could talk for hours or for seconds, because what I always say when it comes to AI is it's lots of the governance measures and things you can do and should do are nothing new per se, right? It's starting all from, if you have no system in place, work manually, you will lose time, you have to spend effort all over again whenever something changes. So our approach in projects we typically do is we create an MVP process, an MVP project, an MVP implementation with Modulos. You spend time building that first guide and template, and then the moment you have more models, you have more applications either built internally or procured from the outside, you really see the benefits of using such a systemized approach, or a jig in my example. And ultimately the goal is to have like an automated governance by design built into your AI stack and your machine learning operations. So good governance, because people at the event, for example, ask us, what is governance in the field of AI? Basically is the template that allows you to replicate success without reinventing the wheel every time. One thing Kevin knows, I will refer to him because he opened my eyes a long time ago when we talked about what AI governance is you see lots of references to GDPR. I did that before as well when it comes to fines, but holistically, you have to think about products when you talk about AI governance, and specifically the AI Act, and not a regulation like GDPR. So Kevin, maybe you can jump in here because you can explain it better than anyone else.
Yeah, so we're all familiar with data protection and GDPR and how it gives data subjects rights and that imposes obligations on those companies that process personal data and maybe want to make money off data processing or have to do it as part of their business. And we're used to thinking about GDPR as something you do as an organization that sort of propagates into your processes, into the tools you use, into your partners that you maybe send data to or receive data from. But ultimately, it's something that derives from rights that people, customers, data subjects have. And GDPR as something that causes disruption for a business kicks in once there's a complaint. So if somebody feels their data is being used inappropriately or misused, they can file a complaint and a process starts. And at the end of which you might get a fine or a court decision about what you're supposed to change. The AI Act is very different. So even though it deals with similar digital processes, the AI Act comes from a very different direction. It comes from product safety, product liability. It is generally based on the medical device regulation. And so you can think about the AI Act as a process where you build a product, this is your AI system, and you want to offer it on the EU market. And in order for that to happen, you have to have done a certain number of things. And that includes, for high-risk systems, getting a so-called conformity assessment done and obtaining a CE mark for your AI system. And only then are you actually allowed to place it on the EU market. So you cannot legally put your AI system, your high-risk AI system, on the market past 2nd of August this year, unless you have done those things already. It's not the case that you can wait until somebody complains. And that is the key difference. And that's why actually there's not that much time left before you have to be ready. And that's the big difference to GDPR.
Still a problem to unmute myself in 2026 sometimes. Thank you, Kevin. And I mean, this is one of the core messages we are, or let's say the first stones we have to unturn in various customer engagements in the last couple of weeks and months, is to change the perception of the AI Act and really bring it down to the product level. And from there, build an organizational structure, but don't see it as a next GDPR thing that can and should be mitigated by checklists and spreadsheets, as we all remember maybe from GDPR times. So how can governance act as a business enabler? Because in the beginning we said, we want and have to make AI risks quantifiable. And we showed you some examples of how to do that. But the other message also of the webinar was, how can governance actually help your businesses and not act as like a next blocker inside your organizations? So when we think about what governance entails here now, it means clear standards, it means early risk management, and it means reusable patterns. If we achieve governance with those three elements at least, we can think about time to market improvement. Why? We have seen companies where governance and compliance with AI now is part of the core product delivery. And what we've seen there is products can go to market and get shipped much faster than if you take the old, let's submit it to legal once we have something approach that we've seen in so many companies. Quality. I mean, as said, just open LinkedIn or open a tech magazine or even like the newspapers these days, you will find examples of, let's say, software built, let's say, not to the highest quality. If you have proper governance in place, it will also help you ship higher quality products. Innovation. We have an example now where we help one of the subsidiaries of a German automotive company integrating compliance and governance into their development workflow. So not on an organization level, but deep where products are being built and shipped. The development, the life cycle is improved so drastically because the system that was built and integrated helps people do their jobs. They know how to implement new technologies. They have a fixed framework. It's built into the pipelines. So developers and others can focus on what's important, meaning innovation in that field. And last but not least, trust. We are seeing like the rise of ISO 42001 in the US as, let's say, a badge of trustworthiness, but also more and more as requirements for companies that you need to show your AI governance so potential customers trust your solutions. But also internally, I mean, one of the big barriers as well from a change management perspective to use AI internally is, can we trust that? And if you can properly show how you govern this, of course, this also helps you building out more and more trust. So just as a quick repetition, I mean, why are we here? Modulos has built a software for this, right? They have the technology, they have monitoring, the platform is automated, it gets new features, I wouldn't say daily now, but at least in Kevin's head. So there's lots of improvements coming and you can quantify risk. And what is the output? For me, it's technical evidence, right? You can show you have evidence based on your systems. What's our role here? We are building the structures, processes surrounding this, help you define roles, help you define procedures, and let's say, we build the organizational governance. And together, for us, this is like an end-to-end approach on how you can build AI governance in your organization from, let's say, management reports down to integration into your actual delivery pipelines. One slide I built as said for a conference a couple of weeks, months, I even forgot these days ago, is what we see in real life compared to how we believe things should be built. What you see on that left triangle is, I would say 80% of the companies we support start their AI journey with what capabilities do we want, right? We want to extract information from documents. We want to automate, an HR process, like what Kevin showed. From there, they say, how do we build this? And in the end, they come up with a framework on how to build this and don't think about, how should we actually do this? What our approach would be in these situations, because we know AI initiatives will hopefully repeat themselves, there will be more than one, is think about how can we build a framework for AI, create the guiding principles, how do we want to get there, and then think about the technical capabilities end. And this is streamlined, not streamlined, this is like borderlined by one side, AI governance principles, and on the other end, it's like the management input done via a corporate strategy. And I've built software for almost 2 decades now, and this is nothing new. That's what I always say. But what the difference for me with AI is so much faster, right? You can have the impression of just procuring a new capability somewhere on the market without thinking what risks do you expose yourselves to and how to properly build this into your organization so you get the most value out of it. I see the slides are loading a bit slower for the LinkedIn Live members, so I have to slow myself down a bit. So how does such a project from our end typically look like, right? What we always start with is, let's say, first our risk check. I mean, you've seen the Modulos software, you've seen the tools we all assessed at Completion. And what we say, we can get your risk exposure, let's say up to 80% coverage inside a 1 hour session. Why? Because, while you might think everything you do is unique, it is not. Technologies are reused. Problems are very similar based on your vertical and your geography. So we would typically go in and say, give us an hour, we run a first risk check, and you get a comprehensive report afterwards of where we believe your risk exposure is right now. Second, how to build the first structures based on that report. There are defined templates depending on your organizational size and so on what best practice templates for your industry can be implemented in your organization to set up your first AI governance principles. And it's not, as we are also seeing, a parallel world of AI governance is completely run differently. It's integrated into your organization. And then we can think about a platform like Modulos to continuously manage this, to integrate the frameworks you want to comply to, and have this as a continuous process, much rather than a once a year activity, which we are seeing so many companies doing right now. So the $1 million or euro question, as we framed it a couple of weeks ago, is how can we quantify this? And I mean, this time, I think, Kevin, you showed your calculation and your risk framework even before. But I think the question really boils down to, once we are able to move beyond high risk and can say a 3 million, euro investment, is that worth $1 million in potential risk? So maybe you can also share some insights from your customers in your last couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if the members of the audience have questions for us, either on the material here or just in general, please put them in the LinkedIn chat, and we will answer them. So the AI Act has legal risk categories, right? It describes a set of use cases that it considers high risk and then imposes the legal requirements. You have no choice. It doesn't matter if you're doing it as an internal project or you're serving 100 million customers. It simply bites the moment you have a certain use case. What a lot of companies run into is that they don't necessarily have a high-risk AI use case. And so they think, oh, well, then we don't need to do anything. Legally, that's correct. But as a business strategy, this could be a problem. In many businesses, some of the most risky AI applications aren't classified as high risk at all because they're very boring plumbing type of AI systems, whether that's maybe a trading algorithm or a load balancer for a certain IT system. And so the risk classification, maybe there is no risk here, it's an AI system. You may not even have transparency obligations because it's completely internal facing. But the risk to your business is enormous. It's existential. If that system fails, you cannot serve your customers, your system goes down, and your business goes down. And so one of the first questions that you should address when doing your inventory of AI systems is, yes, which systems are high risk under the AI Act, and do you have any? But also, what are your riskiest AI systems? If they failed in specific ways, how bad would it be for your business? And that's the benefit of risk management for your AI systems. It lets you identify those systems and look at the risk, assess it, and then start to mitigate it. And that is business critical in 2026.
Thank you, Kevin. So I think we've seen all the screenshots before. So one example, I mean, Kevin, you're absolutely right. Being able to see what are you doing, what risks are you exposed to, what's the potential risk behind it, how to mitigate this, how to reduce the exposure, and therefore also drive decision making, is critical already and will be even more during 2026 and will be a standard next year. And not only a standard because of regulation. I mean, regulation will enforce certain elements, but it will also be an industry best practice. It will be an element of RFPs, of tenders, of when similar as you have to prove certain data privacy and data security things now, you will be asked to show how do you handle risks associated with AI. And there will not be many companies left by the end of the year that won't use any AI at all. So basically, all of you that are here most likely will have to do something in 2026. One example I also like to show, because it also shows how low-hanging some wins can be in an organization. We supported a German accounting company, and they wanted to build a simple AI tool for contract review, right? Some of you might know this interesting task of you have tons of vendors, tons of customers, contracts are shared, NDAs are shared, and what that legal company wanted to do is build a homemade tool to help the teams doing a better job, but also handling more contracts. Everyone internally was not aware of any risk, right? They said, we just use an LLM, we just use the text extraction tool, we build something together, we code it over 1 or 2 weeks, and we can just launch it. What they weren't aware are various aspects of risks hidden in the data, right? There's customer data being built into this. There are subcontractors being mentioned on page 55 of a vendor they used. There are as model logic that might change and that doesn't fit your business logic anymore. There are output changes that you are not aware of. And what we helped them doing, and this time it didn't even take 1 hour, it took like 15 minutes because we know the problems of using those technologies and also the advantages, was we said, hey, if you wanna, we help you fix your issues with that policy checker, but from that project, we derive a simple project check for your organization before you start anything that will help you reveal all the risks associated, but not after you build it, before you start investing. Because if you know what risks are associated with that policy checker, while it might sound like a good idea, you might still don't want to do it, or the other way around. You know, you don't expose yourself to risks, so that investment is valid. So, and they are adopting the ISO principles now quite early. And they can now also say they have built this, but with a proper trust signal towards their customers. So they can go out and tell, past customers and partners, we have that tool, but we built the proper governance surrounding it. So as a quick repetition, what does the governance cycle look like? So what elements do we have to look at? One is definitely the element of data, right? How did we say in the past? As in, as out. So it is still the starting point of any AI governance project will always be looking at the data, how it's structured, where it comes from, does it need to be cleaned, and so on. Secondly, the models. Do you have built something in-house? Do you just bring your own, get your models from the typical vendors? Do you adopt them? And also how to manage this properly. The big buzzword these days, human in the loop, right? I mean, the AI Act, at high risk prohibits to not have manual human intervention. So the question is really, what controls do you need? What controls have you already, and how to build them into your organization? One of the big things for me, compared to all the governance frameworks from all the old days, is how to monitor this. Changes are happening hourly, daily. That there might be risks appearing while we sit in this webinar. So the question of how to monitor this in real time is much more valid than in the past. And last but not least, build the audit trails. And you don't want to manually build audit trails these days for AI solutions. Kevin, maybe something you want to add?
So what you're describing, especially with that customer experience, is essentially the risk-adjusted ROI of implementing AI. This experience of saying, let's use AI, let's speed it through, let's ignore the governance cycle. And then we all know the statistic, even though it's not exactly credible, it's not exactly correct. So supposedly 90% of all AI initiatives fail. I doubt the number, but it reflects a common frustration that companies have of trying to rush through AI and then not getting value out of it. And the reason is fundamentally because they don't go through this cycle, and in particular because they don't start with understanding their risks. And maybe if they calculated the risk at the start, they would realize this will never be economically viable as is. Let's go through a de-risking exercise and then see if it now becomes ROI positive. And then the actual realized ROI will be much higher. And that's just the first step, right? As you show here, you have a whole cycle. You have to keep at it and make sure that what you build aligns with both what you set yourself internally as goals and what's expected externally from regulators and customers. And then the odds of success are going to be significantly higher.
Thank you, Kevin. So what are the key takeaways? And I see we have some comments, but let's see if there are questions in there afterwards. The key takeaways from this session: governance means competitiveness. It's not a burden, it's not a blocker, it's not, an additional cost center. It will help improve your competitiveness. Secondly, control requires measurement. Also nothing new. But in the end, what we are seeing right now, and Kevin just described this as well, the moment you can say you have a risk-adjusted ROI, the moment you can quantify your risks, you will be able to make better decisions or to help your organizations make the right ones. I mean, we talked to a couple of people at the machine learning conference where they say the moment we were able to say to our superiors, the risks are X thousand, X million euros or dollars, people listened. Before it was like, we have a high risk here, but everybody said we need to do AI. We can't fall behind. But the moment you were able to quantify this, decisions were actually made based on those risks. And also nothing new. The success here is, of course, you have to have a certain structure. You have to support it by technology. But last but not least, and this is only one word on a slide, but it's maybe even the most important one, you have to have the right culture to make this a success and not necessarily another, how would we say in German, a paper tiger, meaning you just build structure for the sake of creating documentation. If you build it properly, you will build better products and become more successful. If you are interested, scan that QR code, because when I said we can identify 80% of your risk baseline in 15 minutes to an hour, we want to put our money where our mouth is. So get a free governance check from us. And if you have any questions, reach out to Kevin or myself. You can find us at the usual places. And let me just have a look at the questions. Do we have any? Will there be a recording? Yes. I see a comment, I think. And Kevin, let me read it out and see if we want to how we want to react to that. From Alexander, high risk as a legal category under the AI Act does not directly correlate with the financial estimation of downside risk to an organization resulting from a poorly governed AI product. That sounds like
Alexander is as always completely correct, and I hope I didn't make it sound like I said something different. The legal definition of high risk has nothing to do with some calculated value of potential damage. Not at all. That is completely separate. The point we were trying to make is that for many companies, simply checking that list of high-risk use cases and deciding you don't have any doesn't mean your AI systems that you do have don't carry any financial, any business risk. In fact, that's one of the things that I see a lot of companies overlooking. They say, thank you very much. We don't have any high-risk systems, so everything's fine. We don't need to do anything. And that for me is something that's dangerous.
Agreed. And last comment, no questions, was security must be built in and not baked in by Siva Kumar. And yes, I think we can all agree to this, that security must also be something built into the life cycle, much rather than an afterthought.
Modern AI systems, particularly LLM-based ones, come with a multitude of security problems that can quickly become extremely dangerous. And this is absolutely part of effective governance, is that you try to mitigate those. And just in very recent news, if you followed at all the saga of the Claude bot and Moltbook, I mean, it's an absolute security nightmare. Everyone's API keys have been leaked. The whole thing is just one big security nightmare, including crypto scams and whatever. I set up our own Claude bot, completely sandboxed without access to really anything, just to start to get to grips with how the system works. As it is, I would never dare connect it to anything. So something to keep in mind.
For me, I think the point is that organizations that build AI governance as an island, just to be AI Act compliant or, to fill some checkboxes, they will miss those points because you can't look at this isolated from security aspects, from privacy aspects. So you might start as a pilot somewhere, but this needs to be integrated into your development and product life cycle overall, because otherwise you will fail at different points. Good. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for more news. There will be more. And feel free to reach out.
Thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully your AI governance is already all set up, and if not, contact us.